Sometimes really smart, high-level professionals, like doctors, like lawyers, like accountants, like engineers, sometimes because they're so good at their disciplines, they decide to try to do their divorce without bringing on a divorce lawyer. They've shared with me all sorts of reasons why they do this, but I would say the most common is typically because they don't want to inadvertently or unnecessarily infuse acrimony into their divorce. They are afraid that by bringing in a divorce lawyer, it'll take the temperature up when they're really trying to keep the temperature down or decrease it. It's really important that we talk about this because we see this go really wrong. And I think in a lot of cases, what people are very understandably and legitimately afraid of isn't actually something we see happen. If you involve the right divorce lawyers, they're going to want to know your goals. Is your goal to take the temperature up? Is your goal to take the temperature down? If your goal is to take the temperature down, that lawyer, if they're good at what they do, will do everything that they can to make sure you're getting the legal advice and counsel and advocacy that you need, but not in a way that creates unnecessary conflict between you and your spouse. The mere involvement of a lawyer doesn't take the temperature up. The involvement of a lawyer gets the information you need to make sure you're doing things right the first time. One of the things that not everyone knows about divorce in Connecticut, and I don't think this is the same in every state, so sometimes you have to be very careful if what you're reading on the internet as you do your research is state specific to Connecticut. Because if it's not, you can get a whole bunch of information that's accurate in the world, but not accurate here in Connecticut. So one of the things that we see people not know about Connecticut is that it can be very hard to undo property division after the divorce. So a lot of people have a lot of reasons for trying to keep conflict low in their divorce, and they try and do it themselves because they're afraid that a lawyer will add fuel to the fire. And what that means is if they screw it up and then they call us, it's very hard for us to unring the bell on property division post-divorce. Other things are a little bit more flexible, like alimony. In some cases, not in all cases. I think the point I want you to take away is if you don't do it the right way the first time, it is hard for us to actually help you. One of the really good reasons to work with an attorney if you are going through a divorce and you have children is that every divorce ultimately has to go before a judge. And when you have children, the parenting component of your agreement is going to get special focus. Judges in family law in Connecticut are focused on how this custody and parenting agreement is going to work for their kids. The standard that they use is whether or not something is in a child's best interest. And sometimes what the parents come up with, even though it is well-intentioned, isn't viewed by the court as being in the child's best interest. Sometimes it requires kids going back and forth too often between houses. There are a lot of things that the court tends to view as a good parenting plan versus a less good parenting plan. I think it's important to work with a lawyer who's very experienced in parenting and custody while you're developing your plan so that you know if this is something, the concept that you and your spouse come up with, whether or not that's something that a court is likely to bless or not. You are allowed in Connecticut to represent yourself in a divorce. There is no requirement that you work with a lawyer, that you hire a lawyer to represent you. That said, it's a very bad idea. We have far, far, far too many clients who have tried to do their divorce on their own and then come to us when it didn't go the way they thought it would. We would much rather work with you up front in a way that fits with your goals and make sure that we get things right the first time so that you have the most successful divorce possible.